Welcome to another episode of the Clean Palette Podcast. I'm your host, Justice Johnson. Today, we peel back the paint and reveal the clean palette on one of my favorite artist controversies. This is going to be an art beef that is nearly a decade in the making. On one end of this, you are going to have the artist Stuart Semple, and in the other corner, it is going to be one of modern day art's biggest villains, Anish Kapoor. Anish Kapoor, he's a 69-year-old British Indian sculptor, and he's best known for some of his abstract pieces, whether they are these massive chrome-like sculptures or his use of very bold colors. He studied at the Hornsey College of Art, and he also studied at the Chelsea School of Art. One of his most recognizable pieces you have most definitely seen in some capacity. It is going to be Cloudgate, and it's in Chicago's Millennium Park. But absolutely nobody calls it this. Not a single soul. If I've ever walked up to anybody on the street and said, "Hey, where's Cloudgate?" they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. Everybody calls it the Bean. If you've ever been to Chicago or you've seen anybody post about it on social media, it is the structure that's meant to reflect all the clouds in the sky, but when you go, it's just a bunch of people taking selfies underneath it. It's a big tourist attraction. It's made of 168 steel plates that have all been welded together, but it's really seamless and it's really something to see. It is a massive piece with a major reputation. On the other end of this artist beef is going to be Stuart Semple. He's a 42-year-old British multimedia artist. He studied at the Bournemouth and Poole College for painting and printmaking, and then he also studied at Brenton Hall College for Fine Arts. One of the works that you may have seen, it's a bit more obscure than Cloudgate, but it does happen to have cloud in the name, was his Happy Cloud series in London. This went viral. It was covered by tons of news outlets at the time. So it was composed of these massive giant smiley faces, and they were made out of soap and helium. They repurposed an old snow machine, and what it would do is it would mix the soap and helium together and whip it into these structures, and it almost had like a weed whacker-esque tool that would cut the soap out, and these smiley faces would go float over top of the town. It was really just meant to brighten people's day.
It's a bit of a grey day and it's quite cold, but I think, that's something to uplift even more, and people have been generally quite happy. A lot of school kids trying to grab the clouds, people smiling, so it's done what I hoped it would.
And from everything from interviews to what I've read online, he seems like a really overall good guy and just a man of the people overall. So here we have two accomplished artists. So what caused them to have this beef? Well, it all started back in 2014 when Anish Kapoor got his hands on VantaBlack. VantaBlack is at the time was the world's blackest black, and is an entirely new material that was created in a lab. It was meant for space shuttles and for aerospace research. VantaBlack absorbed 99.8% of all visible light, making all 3D objects lose their dimension. When you look up VantaBlack online, you'll most likely see this image of a mask. And it's your general Halloween mask. You slap it on, it probably costs $3 at Party City. But when they use VantaBlack over top of it, it looks like you looked up a black mask and sent it through to the printer. It basically looks like cardboard, and typically, finding a new color would be a massive thing in the art world. It would be something that all artists would try to use if it wasn't for Anish Kapoor. Kapoor ended up licensing the color so that no other artist was allowed to use it in the context of artwork. He owns all of the creative rights to the color.
And I think I'm sort of playing with the idea of the object appearing and its exact opposite, which is the object disappearing. The blackest material in the universe, it's a carbon material that's put on a surface. What happens to the particles is that they stand up, so like a velvet, and the light gets converted into heat. So effectively, the light is absorbed. 99.8% of the light is absorbed. Our eyes, however, are incredibly efficient. You can actually see even fractions of that. You can see. And, a black is only blacker than another black.
Surprisingly, though, this isn't the first time this has happened where there's a color that nobody else can use. You have companies like Tiffany with their iconic Tiffany blue. You also have the UPS brown, and then you have Barbie pink. There was also Yves Klein in the 1960s when he trademarked a type of ultramarine blue. It was described as one of his signature colors, and he used it a ton in his monochromatic pieces. Throughout history, there have been other paints that were accessible in the past, and companies stopped making them due to either them being too costly or, something went wrong. One of those colors is actually called Mummy Brown, and it was made of ground up Egyptian mummies. Companies stopped making the color in the 20th century because the amount of mummies started to shrink. But I love the fact that it was due to a lack of supply of mummies and not, hey, let's not grind up dead bodies. There are plenty of people who have, as I said, have copyright or trademarked colors, but when Anish Kapoor did it, people weren't too happy. And this is where Stuart Semple gets involved. He was very pissed that Anish Kapoor had licensed this color, and somebody even came up to Stuart Semple at the Denver Museum and asked, hey, what's your favorite color? And his response was VantaBlack, and I can't use it. Stuart Semple ended up coming up with his own paint though, and this would be a super vibrant color. It is the world's pinkest pink. This was supposed to be cheap and available to everyone, except for Anish Kapoor. If you're on his site and you're trying to buy the paint, there's a statement that you have to acknowledge, and it goes something like this. By adding this product to your cart, you confirm that you are not Anish Kapoor, you are in no way affiliated to Anish Kapoor, you are not purchasing this item on behalf of Anish Kapoor or an associate of Anish Kapoor. To the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, this paint will not make its way into the hands of Anish Kapoor. There are rumors that circulated that this made Anish Kapoor really want to get it, and eventually he ended up finding it. Orders started flooding in though, and this was originally like a Kickstarter campaign, and Stuart Semple thought, hey, this is only going to sell a few copies or a few bottles. It was kind of a joke, and then orders started rushing in to where he was super overwhelmed, and now it's a full business. As I said, Anish Kapoor somehow got his hands on the paint. He took to Instagram flipping off Semple metaphorically and in all actuality by sticking his middle finger into the pinkest pink and captioning the photo, "Up yours pink." Stuart Semple had his own response though, which was to make the world's glitteriest glitter, and it was actually made out of a lot of shards of glass in a way to say like, fuck you Anish, if you try to stick your finger in this one and try to flip me off, you're not going to have the best time. Semple then got the help of over 1,000 different artists to make a black of his own, and that was going to be Black 2.0. It was meant to be as close to VantaBlack as possible while still being affordable and eco-friendly.
But I just want to say something. Look, we made this together as a community, and I always thought the way that we could really make this work was to sort of come together, share our ideas, and make something. And we've done that, and we should all be really, really proud of this. This is our black.
Kapoor actually spoke with BuzzFeed and told them that he was going to sue Semple over this new color. But Semple, though, he says he's never gotten the lawsuit. He does say that he is a little nervous because Anish Kapoor, he's this massive artist, he has tons of money and can afford fancy lawyers, but Semple, he doesn't have that much money, he's more of a modest man, and he would have to figure it out on his own. But, as I said, it's been 9 years since this has started, and there's no lawsuit in sight. I did happen to get my hands on Black 2.0. This is the bottle. I have used it a few times, not a ton. And it's an interesting thing because while it is a matte finish and it does claim to be a really black, there are other pigments that are darker, but they're more reflective. So like this does absorb a lot of light, but when it dries, it almost has like a hint of gray to it. It's not, the darkest pigment. I don't think that I use it a ton. I dabbled with it on the painting behind me, just a little bit. Semple does have plenty of new pigments though that you can buy, like the world's most lovely yellow, or the world's yellowest yellow, the world's loveliest blue, the greenest green, and Semple has made his own black paint, as I said. The 2.0, there was the 3.0, which I originally tried to buy, and it was completely sold out, and that's why I had to go back to the 2.0. And now the beef has escalated to where there's now a black 4.0. Kapoor is banned from getting nearly the entire store because he refuses to share the black. Now there are plenty of people who think Anish is a cornball for doing so, and back in the day, Anish Kapoor originally hated when people called the bean Cloudgate, and so once this debacle happened, people would take to Facebook and started to say things and create events like paint the bean the pinkest pink to annoy Anish Kapoor, or like on his 64th birthday when he was, people started to ask if they wanted to celebrate by kissing the bean with lipstick that was the world's pinkest pink. Now he says in interviews that calling it the bean doesn't make him mad because it's taken a life of his own. But personally, I think it's his way of trying to avoid the memes, almost like the Streisand effect. So, you know, if he does say that he hates the bean, more people will try to call it the bean, but, you know, it's not going to work. Accessibility is one of the big parts of this controversy, and while Stuart Semple keeps making things easier to get, he has had, you know, campaigns like to make spray paint where artists could put spray paint in a water bottle as opposed to cans. That way it takes out the cost of, you know, cans cost $10. It would be a top that you screw onto a water bottle, and it would make it more affordable, but it also takes away some of the waste by being able to reuse a regular water bottle, and you wouldn't have to use all of the metal for the aluminum cans. While on the other hand of this, Anish Kapoor is still painting himself at the center of new cornball controversies. In 2015, he pursued legal action over a Chinese statue that sort of looks like the bean. You know, it does have a chrome finish, and it's just a very large, round thing. And he wrote, "It seems that in China today, it is permissible to steal the creativity of others. I feel I must take this at the highest level and pursue those responsible in the courts. I hope that the mayor of Chicago will join me in this action. The Chinese authorities must act to stop this kind of infringement and allow the full enforcement of copyright." The former mayor of Chicago basically just laughed this off and said that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. The head of tourism in that area in China said that the similarities are just a coincidence. He says that the idea of what they're called the oil bubble, it's more of a nickname than a general name, comes from the Black Oil Mountain. He said Kapoor couldn't just gatekeep any round sculpture. He does point out a huge difference between the two though, saying while Cloudgate is meant to reflect the sky, theirs is intended to reflect the ground. Whether it's just a tiny jab, I still think it's really funny. Kapoor has also sued the NRA in 2018 just for using the bean in one of their ads. While those feuds have wrapped up, the one between Anish Kapoor and Stuart Semple hasn't, and other people have also thrown their hat in the ring. In 2019, a group at MIT made a statement against Kapoor by creating their own black that was even darker than VantaBlack. This one absorbs 99.995. This would essentially make a void. It absorbs all light. This was debuted at the New York Stock Exchange with the help of several artists. He painted a single diamond to create a complete void. You know, diamonds are meant to be this super reflective surface, and that's why everybody likes them. But painting this new color over top stripped all of that away. It looked like somebody painted on a piece of paper. Engineers around the new pigment put a plaque next to the piece, and that piece read, "The project can also be interpreted as a statement against British artist Anish Kapoor's purchase of exclusive rights to the formula of carbon nanotubes as a material for artworks. Strebe and Wardle use a different composition of carbon nanotubes, which will be available for any artist to use." And now that there are things like Black 2.0, Black 3.0, I ended up getting my hands on Black 4.0. Black 4.0, it is called the next generation of Ultra Black. I think that this one, there are differences between 2.0 and 4.0, and they are dramatic. Behind me on this piece, I used Black 4.0 for the hair. It And originally I tried using Black 2.0, and I might even use it for highlights, but the difference between them just seems to, one of them is very black, and all my critiques about Black 2.0 are fixed with Black 4.0. It absorbs a lot of the color, but it is a super dark pigment. The other one has like a hint of gray to it. One thing I do notice with these paints though, and with these acrylics, is they dry up super quick. So if you're going to use it, I recommend using it sparingly, like do a tiny drop and then mix it really well. And then if you had to, add your own flair, because I've used little drops and they dry up super quick and they're kind of expensive. I think I paid for this 150 milliliters. I paid something around $65 to $70 with shipping and processing, and that was for standard shipping. It's not necessarily cheap with the quote unquote affordable costs, I guess. Like, I don't know if it would necessarily be worth it for you. If you're looking for something super dark, maybe this is the route for you to go. This one didn't take too long to get, the Black 4.0. Black 4.0 I think maybe took only a few weeks to get, while the Black 2.0 I had several problems with. I think the Black 2.0 took around like 2 months. They said that they were having tons of issues getting things in and out, and they were having tons of orders shoot in. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you guys think the paint would be worth it? Do you guys think that Anish Kapoor is the biggest cornball around? Personally, I think Anish Kapoor is a huge cornball, and you have to share the black. I think that when it comes to art, pigments that you use, the contrast between things, it all comes down to expression, and by stripping away the ability for other artists to express themselves is really a hard pill to swallow as a painter, as an artist, as a creative. And so I think that even if he does share the black now, he still has that kind of lingering over his head, and he's really pretentious. I don't like him. Not a big fan. But that's just my take. You have been listening to another episode of the Clean Palette Podcast. You can find it on all things at Clean Palette Podcast on social media or at Justicetries. There was a big point where I got a little too busy to create. I say that often, but shit happens. So I will try to keep things going. But until next time, stay creative.